Over the past 6 months, I've been buying a lot of books, and when you have too much of anything, you don't know where to start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the 11 shelves, 17 piles, many boxes and stuff that I have in different rooms, and also there's a couple hundred in my acquaintance Philip's house. And by doing this, I'm going to force myself to actually have to start reading the books, because to talk about them in any sort of detail, I'll have to actually read them, or else I'm a fraud. Which I'm a fraud for different reasons, but not for this one. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. So the collection starts at the beginning in chronological order with the ancient Greeks flowing into the Romans and then into the medieval British times of Milton and Chaucer. We have French literature, the poetry of Baudelaire, the philosophy, the plays, and then into the more modern French literature of Dumas. Here we have American literature of Hemingway, Steinbeck, Faulkner, Russian literature of Chekhov, Dostoevsky. He was a great character in Star Trek. We have religious books, which I think are very important and influential. Even something that you might not believe in, I think is very important to read, like the Gita. You have the Quran, we have the Tanakh as well. Shout out that. We have British literature, which I probably have the most of. We have language learning books, which I'm fascinated by languages. We have different dictionaries from countries like Mandarin Chinese. We have metaphysics of how to learn a language. Different era history books. For example, The Captain's General, that's about Prince Philip. Shout out him, died at 99 years old. We have a collection of Tolstoy books. We have a beautiful collection of whatever those are, poetry and metaphysics and critical appreciations of literature. And if you look back there is even more poetry, way more poetry. Poetry, I think, is very cool because it's short and it really hits the soul more than a lot of novels can. You have Hatred Haggard, probably the biggest collection in the world I've seen of his books, and he was one of the biggest influences of early adventure stories that then influenced Tolkien to write Lord of the Rings, which I have hidden behind there. Lord of the Rings there, you can see it. And then at the bottom here we have self-improvement books, which get a lot of hate, but I think they're pretty cool. I haven't read most of these, just like I haven't read most of the whole bunch of books, but this is my favourite one, How to Win Friends in Immigrant Literature of these authors. Have more modern literature of these authors. We have books with a white spine that I didn't know where to put. We have books on ethics and philosophy and more interesting thoughts. We have 60 Penguin books that are of different origins. And that is a start to the collection. So now let's wrap it back and let's get started from the ancient times and move through, explaining in a little bit more detail, just a little bit, because I still haven't read a lot of these books. Let's get into it. The Iliad of Homer. Probably the most influential book of all time. I would give that title to the Bible, but the Iliad of Homer has stood up the test of time so well that people are still rewriting it 3,000 years later. You have Euripides, the Shakespeare of his time. His plays, apparently very influential and very cool, and I do have them marked with different tabs, but I don't remember them. I have Plato's The Republic, a student of Socrates. The problem is Socrates, his writings did not survive, so we have Plato to live by. And when I started reading this, I put it down straight away because I couldn't understand it, so we'll have to come back to this. But let me tell you, you should definitely judge a book by its cover, because look how beautiful these covers are. Tell me that you wouldn't judge a book by its cover when humans are visual creatures. We have Ovid, his Metamorphoses, not to be confused with Kafka's Metamorphosis. I think both are about turning into an animal, but one is a very long, epic poem, and one is only a few hour novel. Sorry, novella, I guess you could call it novella. We have the Odes of Horace, one that was written in Latin or Italian, And if you take a look here, it's actually in English. Because it's a translation. I thought this would be the original. My bad. We have Virgil, the favourite writer of Dante Alighieri, who wrote the Divine Comedy, which has really influenced my opinion of the afterlife. I mean, I walk the street and I think of the 8 or 9 circles of hell and paradise and purgatory. I think that's incredible how Dante, with just 3 books, the Paradiso, the Inferno, and the Purgatorio, has changed thinking 700 years later. We move on to Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, a story of... Oh! Whoa. I just dropped a book into a candle. That was pretty interesting. It actually didn't burn the book, it just turned straight off. That is very interesting. Very interesting. We have Paradise Lost, a story of the fall of Lucifer, who was Satan. And Satan used to be called Lucifer when he was an angel. We have so many books, but that's just taking me off guard. We have Milton. Oh, whoa, not again. We have a biography about Milton's wife, which is not actually a biography, it's a novel. And if you try reading this, it's incredibly dense. I mean, every page has hundreds of things you need to remember what's going on, which is something I don't necessarily like in a book. What I like in books is where you can get lost in the page and kind of feel something, but not feel like you're missing a lot. The first shelf ended very abruptly, so let's move on to the second shelf to avoid bad luck. We have Poetry of Charles Baudelaire, Le Fleur de Mal, a beautiful, beautiful book to read aloud. I mean, the rhyming is so cool, and I don't understand it because I tried learning French, and when I heard how fast they speak, it just took me off the language. We have Descartes, the man who said, "I think, therefore I am," and that became very influential in history. Molière, a playwright, almost like Euripides. We have Flaubert's Madame Bovary, and this style of literature was very influential because it really slowed things down, you know? Not much action in that book, if I remember correctly. Of course, I haven't read it. We have Jean-Paul Sartre, a philosopher. I have 4 of his books. I haven't read them. We have The Count of Monte Cristo, 1,000-page epic, which I've heard is very good. Monte Cristo, that's a casino, isn't it? No, Monte Carlo. My bad. Same thing. We have Albert Camus, existentialist, his Outsider. Very cool. Meursault, I don't relate to him. I thought I would after the first page. Turns out I don't. We have Russian literature. That finished very fast. We missed Émile Zola. We missed Honoré de Balzac. We missed a lot of Voltaire, Candide. I've heard this book is very good. We have Russian literature. Chekhov. Chekhov does such a good job of making you feel like you're actually in his world because the book moves at a very realistic pace. Dostoevsky. Here, his books, I've tried reading them and I just don't get through them. So if you have any tips, let me know. But these covers are beautiful as well. I mean, look how beautiful these covers are. Maybe they're not that beautiful. But it's the words, not the covers, right, guys? Here, William Faulkner. Cool guy. Looks nice, doesn't he? Great books. I say that and I haven't read them, but I will after I make this video. We have John Steinbeck, Of Mice and Men. That plot twist. George and Lenny, man. I love them so much. They're very nice. Very cool. Cormac McCarthy, Blood Meridian was a great book. I don't actually have it though. I only listened to it. We have religious books now. I mean, we've just skipped through so many. Hold on. Let's go back. Mark Twain. Chuck Palahniuk. He was the guy who made Fight Club. The Hunger Games. Yeah, I guess that was cool about 10 years ago. I think it's kind of a nice book. What am I even saying? Anna Karenina. I haven't read it. I love listening to the Quran being recited, but then I read it without the recitation because obviously I can't recite it. It really doesn't hit the same. We have my favourite Bible here because it's in Polish. I mean, just look at that script. Nice, isn't it? So many books. If I were to go through each and every single one, this video would be about maybe 24 hours long. It could be. It could well be. Wow. British literature. How do I even get to this? I mean, there are 6 piles, and they are all quite dense. G.K. Chesterton, The Man Who Was Thursday. Lovely cover. Man, I love judging books by the covers. So cool. The Rainbow, D.H. Lawrence. Shout out to him. Wow, nice cover, isn't it? I mean, I'm just enthralled by these covers. E.M. Forster. I love his book. What is it? A Passage to India. I have an identical copy of this style, and it's a very nice book. We have Jane Austen, John William Stoner. I've heard this book hyped up a lot. I haven't read it. And Heart of Darkness, Joseph Conrad. Wow, I mean, people say that is one of the most atrocious books of all time, as it describes the crimes that Belgium committed in the Congo, the DRC. And I read it, and it just didn't hit me. I don't think I'm old enough for that book yet, but I'll get back to you in a few years. George Eliot, that book, I don't know, but Middlemarch, I've heard it is for the older population. Someone, I think maybe Jane Austen, said Middlemarch is the one book written only for adults, while not having any adult content like murder. Have the language books. My favourite language is probably Russian. Yeah. I mean, the Cyrillic alphabet is just a pain to read, but my favourite book is by a Russian writer, and I don't have a Russian copy of it, but I do have a privately reprinted copy, which I have not seen any others of these in the world, but it is the same edition, the Penguin edition. Oh, again, I can't stop dropping books today. We have this privately reprinted edition, ex-library by someone. I just bought this off someone. I didn't get it reprinted myself. Very nice, isn't it? Yeah. Let's keep moving, because let's just keep moving, yeah. We have history books. The Byzantine Empire. To me, reading history doesn't give such a soul-fulfilling effect, because I feel like living in the present is way more valuable than reminiscing on the past through literature. Watching something like a documentary does give me those tingles, but reading a book does not necessarily do that. So tell me if you guys feel the same. Let me just put this back. We have this Heron Classics, I think they are. Blue set in the background, but this Tolstoy set is what I spent the most money on, because these books, they didn't actually come together when they were released in the 1930s, but for some reason this person had collected all of them. We have the world's Oxford Classics, Tolstoy Maud translations, in this lovely red little collection. Isn't that nice? Here, poetry. So much of it. Too much poetry for one single person to analyse deeply in a lifetime even. I mean, it might take 10 lifetimes, because poetry is something which is more valuable if you take it slowly. If you spend a couple of days on just one poem. And my favourite poem is The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot, which I'm sure I can see behind there. There we go. Yeah, there it is. Wow, that's blurry as hell. Yeah, here we have metaphysics like The Death of Tragedy. All these books I have not yet read. There we have a collection of privately rebound books, which in this case, something like the plays by Bernard Shaw, have had 4 Penguin orange books, like say these. You rip off the front and the back, and then you glue them together. And that, I feel, is quite cool, isn't it? The next shelf is the one of H. Rider Haggard books, and this is my one attempt at purchasing books to invest in them, because people don't really care about this author much, but back in the day he was very loved and very influential. So, if one of his, say, great-great-grandchildren becomes the president, and I might be delusional, this will go up in value. And his stories are actually quite good. Like my favourite one being She. I don't know if... there it is. That one. It's actually quite interesting. He lived between 1870 and just before 1930, if I remember correctly. And then we move on to the self-improvement books. There's a lot of them. People like to be quick to dismiss self-improvement books as just something used to make money for the author. Because if they were in possession of such great knowledge, why would they feel the need to sell it? Why not use the knowledge for themselves and gatekeep it to make even more money? Well, I'm not sure. But usually these books I buy them on discount long after they've lost their popularity. You can see there Rhonda Byrne's The Secret. Let's have a look at what books are behind here. I've really forgot. Why We Sleep. I don't know what the rest are. But that's going to do it for today's video, because I feel like there's no need going through all these until I start reading some of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take myself back to the beginning, light some incense sticks as if I'm a philosopher living in Minutia, the Minusian school of thought of Stoicism, something like that. And I'm going to make a few videos on each book and end when I read every book in history. That sounds like a very realistic plan, and I feel like if I get my head down, I might be able to reach 2025 in about 2 weeks. So, see you then. Thank you very much for watching. Peace.